Good afternoon. My name is Valerie Pigatt, and I am the president and co-founder of the Sankofa Cipher. And I was asked to give you a little history on the importance and history of Juneteenth. Juneteenth is the day we celebrate the end of chattel slavery here in the United States. It is a day that essentially everyone in America was free. It is our Freedom Day. But doesn't Independence Day celebrate our freedom?
But wait!
No.
There's more! Hang on to your seat, baby, because this one's a screamer!
No. The American Revolution, which went from 1775 to 1783, was essentially fought because Great Britain attempted to recoup monies from financing the French Indian War through taxation. The colonies demanded no taxation without representation, wanting equality with British citizens if they were going to pay taxes. Britain was like, no, I don't think so. But they kept the taxes on the teas. This allowed the British tea company to import its teas directly competing with the colonial teas. Disguised as Mohawk natives, the colonists dumped the teas, almost 90,000 pounds of teas, into the ocean, which was today's worth about $1 million. Of course, the military responded, and this eventually led to the American Revolution. The first person to die in the American Revolution, Crispus Attucks, a Black man. The colonies needed foreign support, and in order to do so, they had to declare their independence. So, an official Declaration of Independence was made. Its principal author being Thomas Jefferson. The pronouncement was adopted by a congressional meeting in the Pennsylvania State House, which is now Independence Hall, on July 4th, 1776. It was signed by representatives from all 13 colonies. After the war, America celebrated its independence every year on July 4th, July 4th. So, in 2015, civil rights activist and Congressman John Lewis was awarded the Thomas Jefferson Medal Foundation Medal. The award states that Thomas Jefferson sought to create a society that would transform his vision for human progress into a reality. Fully aware that his dreams would not be realized in his lifetime, let you hear him explain what winning this award meant to him.
My great-grandfather had been a slave, and when he was free, the first thing he did, he got married to the woman that he loved. So I know something about Jefferson history, and to come here to his home and to reflect on what he said and what he did, it says something about the goodness of the American dream. That we all can come and move to a different place. We all live in the same house, not just the American house, but the world house. And the truth that Jefferson wrote, they cannot be denied.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
Probably it's around today. We know what you're saying when you saw men, all human. It doesn't matter whether you live in the American South, the Midwest, or whether you live in Africa or you, an Asian, or Central South America. All men, all humans are created equal. And no one should be denied certain basic rights because of the color of their skin, the gender, whatever.
Wait, this is 1776, and they're saying all men are created equal. Well, this sounds great, right? It sounds like something we as African Americans should celebrate as well, right? Hold up. Something ain't right here. But we were still enslaved until 1865, almost 100 years later. But why did they say all men are created equal, but still had slavery going on? Well, the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, wrote that all men are created equal, yet enslaved more than 600 people over the course of his life. While he was a very public opponent of slavery throughout his life, he also strongly believed that Black people were inferior to white people. His views on Black people were very detailed, and you can find them in his notes on the state of Virginia. He was not talking about African Americans in the Declaration of Independence. He did not see us as equal at all. So no, Honorable Representative John Lewis, I respectfully disagree. If he was here today, he would most likely not have been pleased that you received an award in his honor. Facts are facts. John Adams states, facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be your wishes, our inclinations, our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. Yeah. What is the Independence Day and this Declaration of Independence to the Negro? I'm gonna let Frederick Douglass tell you something.
Frederick Douglass, once a slave, became a brilliant and powerful leader of the anti-slavery movement. In 1852, he was asked to speak in celebration of the 4th of July.
Fellow citizens, pardon me, and allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us? I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days of the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is a constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, an unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes that would disgrace a nation of savages. There's not a nation of the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument, is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could reach the nation's ear, I would today pour forth a stream, a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke. For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be aroused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and the crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
That was James Earl Jones reading the words of Frederick Douglass.
Sounds like Frederick Douglass would actually be on the side of Black Lives Matter protests, doesn't it? He says to bring attention to the injustices, what was going on, to rouse the conscious. Wow. At any rate, about 10 years after Frederick Douglass's speech, Abraham Lincoln was elected President of the Union, and a civil war began. They always want to say that it was over states' rights. That's usually the key word, states' rights, states' rights. But for us, it basically was the rights for states to own slaves. That's what it was about, slavery. The economic and political control of that system of slavery was indeed central to the war. The newly opened Western territories had been a source of debate, the South wanting to expand slavery into these new territories, leading to a direct competition with the North. The North was mostly with manufacturing, and industry was well established, and agriculture was mostly limited to small-scale farms, While the South, the economy was dependent on the labor of its Black enslaved to grow crops, especially cotton and tobacco. In the third year of this bloody war, Lincoln decided to use the Emancipation Proclamation. He issued and declared this proclamation declaring all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states shall be free. Slave labor was used to support the Confederate Army, and that gave the Confederacy a distinct advantage. If he freed these enslaved, it would weaken the Confederate Army. This justified the Emancipation Proclamation as an act of military necessity, which was valid under the Constitution. Millions of enslaved continued to live as slaves until the Union armies gradually made their way south. The freed men took up arms and fought alongside the Union for their freedom. The Battle of Gettysburg was a turning point.
Virginia. The South's leader, Robert E. Lee, decided it was time to make a bold move. He wanted a victory on Northern soil. He was sure this would make the Union want to end the war once and for all. Lee took his troops into Pennsylvania in June 1863. Union soldiers followed Lee and his Confederate troops and surprised them in the town of Gettysburg. The three-day battle that followed was a turning point in the war. Lee's Confederate army lost thousands of men and was forced to retreat to Virginia. The casualties from one battle at Gettysburg totaled about 56,000, more than all of the wars fought on American soil put together. The Confederate Army was never able to invade the North again. On November 19, 1863, President Lincoln used the dedication ceremony for the Gettysburg National Cemetery to honor the fallen Union soldiers and redefine the purpose of the war in his historic Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live.
Now Lincoln had the advantage. Robert E. Lee was forced to retreat. The Union was now able to advance and take with it the Emancipation Proclamation into more of the Southern territories. Abraham Lincoln knew that it would be necessary to make a constitutional amendment to ensure the end of slavery. On April 8, 1863, it was passed in the Senate. It passed the House in July 31st, 1865. It was swiftly ratified by nearly all northern states. However, on April 14th, 1865, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Texas, being a battleground state in the Civil War, not being a battleground state in the Civil War, was largely isolated. During the war, many slaveholders in Arkansas and Louisiana moved their slaves into Texas to avoid them being emancipated. But on June 19, 1865, with 2,000 troops, some of those, of course, were African troops, the freedmen troops entered the Union, General Gordon Granger stood on the balcony of Galveston Ashton Villa and read aloud the contents of General Order Number 3, announcing the total emancipation of those held as slaves. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection hereto existing between them becomes employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present home and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect a military post and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. Yes, they found out that before his death, nearly 2 years previously, Abraham Lincoln had freed them. They were finally free. Can you imagine the joy this was to them? It was a shock. Some left immediately and some stayed with their previous owners, which evolved into a sharecropping relationship. Many headed north. Some went to find families that were torn from them in neighboring states. This is actually an article, I believe, that was in 1866, showing the celebration of this day, June 19th, in Texas. The tradition continues. Entering its 155th year of celebration, at its height in 1870, they purchased 18 acres of land to host it and had over 30,000 people in attendance. It is celebrated with rodeo, barbecue, football, spoken word, education, politics, self-improvement, family history compilation, historical reenactment, dressings in the period attire. Food was pretty much what we eat currently at cookouts, but definitely a strawberry soda. They dressed in their finest. It was a grand affair. Thank you so much for having me, and please consider learning more about the Sankofa Cipher. We provide online classes, lesson plans, K through 12, Black history events, learn more about Black history before slavery. There are great African civilizations across the globe, how to trace your family history, and you can find us on Facebook. Thank you again. Bye.